Hello and welcome back to the Edge of the Box podcast, a podcast by WhoScored.com in association with UltimateFan. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by Jonathan Wilson and WhoScored's very own Dan Worth. First appearance for a year, maybe, Dan?
Yeah, it must be. I think it's definitely the first appearance all season. Standing in for George, it kind of screams of a team that have very little to play for, throwing in the kids, but I'll take it.
I'm trying to think, like in pre-season when you'd see Batshuayi playing for Chelsea. You never see him playing the league, and in pre-season, it's pre-season because Batshuayi is lining up for Chelsea. It feels a little bit like that to me.
All of the comparisons are not very confidence boosting, really, but yeah, we'll see.
I mean, I thought you were good last season, so hopefully you'll enjoy conflabbing with Jonathan and myself today. Right, we're here to look at Liverpool against Tottenham, and I've already forgotten what the second game is. Is it Palace against Manchester United? The second game. Who's at home? Palace at home. Yeah, I couldn't get my running order down quick enough, and my font seems to be massive, so I couldn't get down quick enough to look who the second game was. You'll probably notice I look a bit sweatier than normal as well because I've come straight from the gym, and that's probably going to contribute to a poor performance from me. So maybe Dan Worth might be hosting the podcast next week after my performance today. We're here to preview all the weekend's Premier League action. Nothing about Europe. We don't talk about European football on this podcast at all. Purely Premier League, here to preview the weekend's action. And we're going to start with Liverpool against Tottenham. Jonathan, I'm going to come to you. What do you make of Arne Slot's appointment?
Well, I think whoever took over, the problem they'd have is they're not Xabi Alonso. And Xabi Alonso seems such a perfect fit that anybody else seems anticlimactic. I mean, Slot's record at Feyenoord is very good, but Ten Hag's record at Ajax is very good. I think there's reasons to worry whether form in the Eredivisie translates to the Premier League. But again, the Premier League, the depth of quality at the top end of the Premier League is such that I don't think there's any other league maps straight over. I don't think there's any other league has that consistency of pressure. Resources are way greater in the Premier League than anywhere else. So the level of play you're dealing with is going to be greater. So I think whoever you turn to, it's going to be a bit of a risk. Slot, I think, is very forthright in press conferences. He seems quite happy to pick fights with people. I mean, he had the fight with the spat with. You went all Steve McClaren and called it a spat there. He had a spat with.
I did it with Slot as well. I did it when I said his name.
No, it is Slot though. It is a soft S. It is Slot. So yeah, Slot had a spat with Jose Mourinho. So he's not afraid to get stuck in. I think his style of football is similar enough to Klopp's to. Yeah, it doesn't need a massive overhaul of the squad, which was my big concern with Amorim. Was he's always played with the back three, and Liverpool squad is it's set up for back four. Now again, it's not that you couldn't change this. It's not irreconcilable, but that was a big question mark. Slot's football, I think, is more similar, so it makes sense on a lot of levels. But equally, I think if he doesn't have a quick start, questions are going to be asked pretty loud pretty soon.
Where else do you think they could have gone, Dan? Obviously, we know they probably wanted to go Alonso. Is there anywhere else you think they could have done, or do you think this is the best appointment that they could have made? Look, it's hard to say these things, isn't it, without having anything to back up what you're saying?
Yeah, it is hard. And as Jonathan says, like the fit with Slot sort of seems to be pretty ideal. I'm a little surprised they didn't push. Well, I mean, I don't know how hard they pushed, but for De Zerbi. I still. Do
you think?
Have no idea.
I'm not having De Zerbi.
You're not having it.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he could do that role pretty well. I mean, I went to Brighton a couple of weeks ago, and he looks completely done there. So he's obviously moving. And I thought, yeah, United, Liverpool, that kind of team over here could be a good fit for him. I suppose he's probably not going to take either of them and go into Europe, but yeah, I think Slot's probably is the right choice, bar the Alonso shouts. But maybe he will be better off for getting a bit of extra time before he takes that job.
I think just on De Zerbi, I think there's two things that count against him for Liverpool. So one is I just think his demeanour and his behaviour in recent weeks has put off a lot of big teams. That talking about how Brighton don't match up to his ambition and just his sort of petulant touchline behaviour. It worries you about his capacity to deal with adversity or pressure. I think the other thing, his football is actually quite different to Klopp's. His is all about provoking the press. I think it's a really interesting style of football. I think it may be the coming style. But I also sort of think if you're in charge of a big team and you need the opposition to press you for you to to generate the space for you then to hit. Well, teams playing Liverpool is actually we'll just sit here. We'll take the 0-0. Thanks very much. So I think that possibly is a concern. That partly it's just a different style of football, so the squad will have to learn a whole new way of doing things. But partly, I'm not entirely convinced it's a style of football that would work with a giant as opposed to sort of an upper mid-table team.
Yeah, Slot's renowned for playing 4-2-3-1. Jonathan, or that's what he's played in this job anyway. Obviously, Liverpool have played that at times, but largely been 4-3-3 over the last 8-9 years. Is there anyone within that squad that you think, that might suit them? And also, do you think maybe at this point now, is this the point where we may see the evolution of Trent into midfield under Slot, and then they play Bradley at right back as a bit more of a traditional right back if they are 4-2-3-1?
I mean, okay, 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3. I don't think are massively different. It's 4-3-3 now is not three midfielders slung across the line. It's a holding player, a creator, and then a sort of shuttler who joins them.
Let me tell you, 4-3-3 under Steven Gerrard at Villa was three midfielders stood in the line.
Yeah, and that worked incredibly well, and I'm sure that is the football of the future. So all you're doing is in a 4-2-3-1, you're that shuttling player is slightly more conditioned to be deeper, and that creator is slightly more conditioned to be just the creator. So, Szoboszlai can play as the creator. He can play slightly deeper. Yeah, I don't really think that's a huge difference. However, the point you make about Alexander-Arnold sort of naturally slotting in on the right side of that too. That he and McAllister might work quite nicely as a pair. They'd have to sort of one go, one sit, and that might be a way round not having to bring in essentially a replacement for Endo. They tried to get Caicedo, they tried to get Lavia, ended up with Endo, and Endo's done fine. Slotting in, ending up with Endo. All these people are verbs. Stop being verbs. So yeah, it might be a way to cover that shortfall, or they could just bring in a more natural holder, and then you've got McAllister a bit freer. And in fact, you've got Alexander-Arnold there anyway. It gives you bring in a holding player. You've got the three of them, and you've got those options. You've got cover at right back as well. And also, I'd be slightly wary about building anything too much for the future around Alexander-Arnold, given his contract is up a year come the summer. And there doesn't seem to be any great urgency for him to sign. That the rumours linking him to Real Madrid seem pretty strong. And it's obviously an area where Real Madrid, I think, probably will need strengthening by then.
It has got a whiff of Real Madrid, hasn't it? Especially with Bellingham there. We know they're very good friends. I think he said the other week in an interview that they're best friends at international level. Dan, we've seen with Manchester United that going and getting players that you've worked with before from the Dutch league doesn't necessarily translate to success, but obviously the easy links now are that Liverpool are going to be linked with Feyenoord players. Do you think that's a viable tactic, or do you actually think that Liverpool won't do that because their setup behind the scenes is very different to Manchester United? It doesn't feel like the silly thing that Liverpool would do, whereas it feels like pure Manchester United.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure, but going back to that, I can't remember which one of you said it, but Liverpool are much more set up to not do it than Man United are. Like, Man United were desperate to pick up some of Ten Hag's former colleagues, but there are a few options from Feyenoord that could fit in nicely for Liverpool. And I think reports are suggesting that Liverpool are going to prioritise another centre back. Despite Van Dijk and Konate being all right this season and basically winning everything in the air, so you got like the likes of Hanko maybe that they might look towards. He looks set to finish the season in the Eredivisie team of the season, so he's obviously pretty decent. I do think that they won't look at United too much though and think, we best avoid doing that, because I just feel like United made terrible decisions with Anthony, etc. So I don't think they'll worry about it too much. But yeah, I think Liverpool pretty set up, so maybe one or two, but I don't think they'll go crazy.
No, and Jonathan, on the talk of transfer speculation, and we've touched on contracts already with Trent Alexander-Arnold. What's going on with Salah on the bench fairly frequently at the moment, having a tantrum on the sideline, having an argument with Klopp at the weekend against West Ham? Do you think he'll be here next season, Mo Salah?
Well, both parties, both Liverpool and Salah seem to be saying. Oh, sorry, Liverpool and the Saudi League, which is where we seem to be going, seem to be saying they're anticipating a move in 2025, which surprised me slightly. I don't know what Liverpool really gain by keeping him for another season. If they could say get 40 million from the Saudi League, I think that would be worth.
Do you not think they get 100? Because it was 150, wasn't it, in a year ago?
1 year left on his contract.
I know, but Saudi Arabia will still do it.
Well, I mean, if you can get more than 40, then great.
They paid Jordan Johnson about £700,000 a week.
Well, I'm not sure they paid him anything in the end, but
no, they were willing to. Then they were willing to.
Or were they? If they can get a sizable amount for Salah, I don't know why you wouldn't take it. You have to be very confident that he could return to the form that he had before January. But his form since January, since he got that injury at the Cup of Nations, has been terrible. And actually, it's to be fair to him, it's the first time he's had a hamstring injury. That might be a sign of age. It might be just a freak thing, and maybe that is affecting him. I think a lot of players who've played in mid-season tournaments have struggled a bit since coming back. I don't think Son's been anywhere near as good since he came back. Kim Min-jae, we saw for Bayern, has had a nightmare since he came back from the Asian Cup. He's barely been able to get in the team. So he's not the only player who's come back from the Cup of Nations or the Asian Cup and struggled to get going again. I don't know. I just sort of think when you've got 1 year left, it's your final year, a new manager. There's a lot of sort of loose ends there. I think if I were Liverpool, I'd be thinking, get as much cash as we can, clean break, start again, and let the new manager not have to deal with that. Let the new manager have his own person there. Rather than sort of, Salah's not the hardest working presser in the world. He's not terrible at it, but he's not Darwin Nunez. And so rather than Slot constantly going, please, can you press a bit more? How do we cover for Salah not quite pressing as much as we'd like him to get somebody more in the Slot vision, I think would be beneficial. I don't know why the Saudis would want to wait. If we could get him for I think 40 million would be fair, but if Liverpool can get 50 or 60 out of them, then great. You're getting a player age, what is he now, 31, 32?
He might be 32.
You're getting a player at 32, not 33, which, he's near his peak. I don't know why you wouldn't take him. So it just seems to me that, Liverpool's briefing and the Saudi briefing, they seem to me sort of negotiating stances. We don't expect him to go, or we don't really want him for another year. But actually, they probably do want him to go, and they probably do want him this year. It's just a question of finding the fee.
I feel like he might not want to go. I feel like he want to play at the highest level still, and obviously that isn't the highest level. It'd be interesting to see what does happen in the summer. Don't know. Let's rewind a couple of months when we found out Klopp was leaving. We were probably all sat here saying, no, he's leaving them in a brilliant state. All these academy players are coming through. Results are going well. They're on for the quadruple potentially. I think it seems to have soured a little bit over the last few weeks. But do you think that takes away from that fact, or do you think he's still leaving Liverpool in a brilliant place for Slot to come in and take over?
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad a place as some people might assume based on the drop of form of late. As I said earlier, players wise, they're pretty set up to be a decent side next season. They may need to bring in some to challenge for the title, and obviously a large impact on what Salah does to whether they need to replace him or whatever. But I think it is actually mad to think that not that long ago we were talking about quadruples, and now we're obviously not talking about that for Liverpool. But I think he's done such a good job at Liverpool. I think we can almost ignore the last month or so of poor form and say he's leaving a pretty decent squad behind, I'd argue.
Yeah, so they're really decent players still. There's obviously plenty of fresh academy players coming through as well, Jonathan.
I think he's leaving them in almost the perfect place. That had they won the quadruple, maybe that was ever realistic, but had they won, say, 2 or 3 of the 4, that would have been pressure on Newman. How do you improve on that? Whereas, they're not at the peak that they were at, but they do seem to be on the way up. And the transition from Klopp's last great team is well underway. I think you look at the midfield, Szoboszlai, McAllister, they need one more in there. It might be Alexander-Arnold moves in there as well, but that's a pretty healthy two going forward. Curtis Jones, you would hope, would play more next season. Harvey Elliott maybe dropping deeper. You look at the forward line, and yes, there's questions over Darwin Nunez, and I think the finishing in Luis Diaz is still a worry. Salah, we've talked about, we don't know, how long he's going to stay there. Diogo Jota's fitness, the fact that you can never avoid injury for long, is a problem. But that has begun. You've got Gakpo there. You've got kids coming through in various positions. So Bobby Clark, Lewis Kumas. I mean, you've got Bajetic, who we've all forgotten about this season, who's still only 19.
I've forgotten about him, as you can tell by my reaction.
There's plenty of young players there to build on. I think at the back, Conor Bradley, looks like, if Alexander-Arnold is leaving, Conor Bradley looks like a very, very good replacement. Joel Quansah, I think, has played far more than anybody expected and has looked very, very good. So there's building work going on, but the foundations are there. I think a centre back is the area they're really looking at, partly because Matip and Konate. Matip, I think that knee injury has been very significant. Konate seems unable to play 2 games a week. Van Dijk's wrong side of 30, so they do need another centre back in there. I think. Hansko is the person they've been linked to. Michael Edwards, I'm sure, has his own people, but the fact he's left-footed, which I think is significant. In fact, he's worked with Slot before. There's an obvious link there. I think before too long they'll have to get another left back in. Maybe not this summer, but the summer after that. But the shape of that new squad is there, but it's not fully formed. So the new manager can come in and he can form it in his own way. He's not having to break anything apart before building. So I think, is this a team I'd expect to win the league next season? No. Is it a team who should be top 4 and challenging for the title? Yeah, definitely. A new manager, you give them a couple of years to really bed in, but I think Liverpool are in a pretty healthy place. So, it hasn't been the farewell that people perhaps wanted for Klopp. But then if you rewind to September, they just didn't look like a side who were going to be challenging. If you remember the game at Newcastle, they could easily lost that game quite comfortably. They get away with a 2-1 win. You sort of think, they're clinging on. To go from that to where we were in March, where you were talking about possible quadruple, is a huge, huge leap. But I think that just that manic energy, the manic emotional energy that surrounded the League Cup final, and it got them through a couple more games. But I think that's almost as wearing as the physical side of it. And in the end, that just ran out. I think you look even the Brighton Sheffield United games, though they won them, they weren't great. And then the United Cup game, United League game, Palace. Just eventually the emotional energy, the physical energy ran out. But they're still, I think, in a better place now than I expected them to be back in September.
Yeah, I fully agree with your sentiment there. Agree completely. In fact, let's talk about their opponents then, Dan. Spurs. I mean, there was a football match last night in the Premier League. Hence, we're recording this on a Friday morning. There was no other football on yesterday evening other than than the Premier League. I was doing something else last night. Dan, did you watch the game between Chelsea and Spurs?
I watched a bit of something else, and I did watch a bit of. I
can't imagine what you would have watched.
No.
If there's anything else on, but yeah, Chelsea Spurs, obviously. Another negative result for Tottenham, a place where they've got an abhorrent record going to Stamford Bridge. We probably shouldn't be surprised, but everything feels a little bit flat around Tottenham Hotspur at the moment, which is good for me as a Villa fan, but it's a bit flat at Tottenham now.
Yeah, it is, and you're right. It's very good for you. Starting to see Postecoglou. Well, I mean, he literally lost it on the touchline yesterday, which was the first time I've seen it, but I may have missed it if it's happened previously. I don't know, the shouts that he had after the Arsenal game of his approach to set pieces was quite interesting. To then go and concede 2 set pieces against Chelsea after saying they're not that important yeah, seems a bit crazy to me. I think they've conceded the last 5 goals, 4 of them have been from set pieces. So that's not great. They're conceding the most amount of shots in the 6-yard box as a result of a set piece too. So it's like, yeah, maybe they should spend a little bit more time on the set pieces. And you're right. I think like top 4 now is kind of almost out of reach for them if it's not already mathematically. So their season's just going to kind of come to an abrupt end. I think that their main thing now is what they can do against City and that implication on the title, I think.
Yeah, what's going on, Jonathan, apart from the set pieces where Postecoglou said, if I thought fixing defensive set pieces were the answer to us bridging the gap, then I'd put all my time and effort into that. But that's not where we're at. They've got bigger problems than set pieces. I mean, you can say set pieces aren't a problem or aren't the biggest problem when you're losing games because of conceding off set pieces.
Maybe he literally means he just doesn't care about set pieces, which is a bizarre abnegation. I think his point, though, is the big difference between Spurs and a title challenger isn't the set pieces. And I think on that, it's true. And he's trying to generate a style of play with a better caliber of player that can challenge for set pieces. Can challenge for titles. And then after that, the set pieces maybe add 2 or 3%. But when you've just conceded 2 goals, really soft goals from set pieces, to come out and say that nothing was more certain than that Chelsea would score a header from a set piece in the first half last night. I mean, I missed the first half hour of that game. Saw it was 1-0. Went back on the thing where you can look back at the highlights, and I was just not surprised in the slightest to see that the Chalobah goal had been a header. Well, you see at Chalobah, you kind of got an idea what type of goal it will be, but there was a header from a free kick. The second one, I mean, I know technically is a goal from a set piece, but a free kick that smacks the bar and bounces down is a little bit different. But I don't understand why he would address it in those terms. I don't know why he couldn't say, look, we need to look at this. We shouldn't be conceding this many goals from set pieces. We will work on it. However, the more important thing for bridging the gap to the top sides is not that. I don't know why you couldn't. If that's what he meant, just say that. It's not a difficult thing to say, rather than this sort of. I mean, I also that was the problem at the start of the season. I was really impressed by the start of the season, not just results, and it's obviously easy to be impressed by somebody who's won 8 and drawn 2 of their first 10 games. But it was the straightforwardness in the press conferences that really impressed me. It was a sort of this weird sense of talking to a human, which is so unusual in football. But this isn't that. This is a kind of weird sort of passive aggressive. Yeah, I'm not bothered by that, mate. Just because he had a load of goals with that. Why are you worried about it? It's a bit like Ten Hag saying, "Oh well, we're not concerned about the number of shots we're conceding." What? Like, I mean, there's clearly a correlation between the number of shots you concede and the number of goals you concede. Equally, if you're letting in, I don't know how many goals they have conceded from set plays this season, but that 10 or 15 goals, if you conceded 5 or 7 rather than 10 or 15, well, that's 7 goals the opposition aren't scoring, which makes you more likely to get draws or wins, and that gives you more points. That puts you higher in the table, which is like the aim.
We don't care about being higher in the table, Jonathan.
He said that as well, hasn't he? He's not bothered whether they finish top 4. I mean, this is a bit like the late period Wenger, where it's not really about winning the titles; it's about playing pretty football with nice young men. The game's easy if you make up your own rules, but ultimately, you are going to be judged on results and how high in the table you finish. So, it's the first sort of real crack, I think, in the sort of Postecoglou legend. But then that dip they had around Christmas, you could blame on injuries. I know that the left side's a big problem at the moment, but they haven't got that many injuries at the minute. Richarlison being out, it's not great. But then you look at the squad, who are the last 2 subs they bring on? It's still Giovanni Lo Celso and Brian Ruiz, and it's okay. I mean, that shows what he's working with. So I don't know. I think it's been a funny season for Tottenham. That 5th is fine. 5th is a good finish for them. And United and Chelsea have really helped them get 5th by being hopeless. But still, 5th, some of the football they've played has been really good. But they took 2.6 points per game for the first 10 games, and they're averaging about 1.5 since then. And that fall off is, 2.6 was never sustainable. But I'd like to hear I'd like to hear him address why the fall off has been so sharp. And when there clearly is a problem with defending set plays, I'd like him to be a bit more cognizant of the problem.
Yeah, we know doggies out for the rest of the season. I think he's
well, Ben Davis as well, which is a problem, isn't it? Emerson Royale's playing, and
yeah. I think Emerson Royale at left back arguably is better than Ben Davis in the Postecoglou system, but obviously they lost.
Possibly, yeah.
They lost again last night. But yeah, I really like him, but I've found his press conferences a little bit strange at the moment. I'm not bothered about being a good presenter. It's all about having a nice background. I'm not bothered about asking good questions and things like that. This is the equivalent of me saying that doesn't make any sense, does it? Because realistically, no one cares about what's behind me. They care about what I say. And I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. So maybe I don't care about being a good presenter. We've already touched on. I could just read the script. That would probably help me. We've already touched on players kind of in the second half of the season not being as effective as they were in the first half of the season. One of those players is James Maddison, who was probably the first half of the season one of the players of the season so far in the Premier League. Second half of the season, come back from injury, just not being the same at all. I guess that's one of the reasons that Spurs aren't as good as they were in the first 10 games.
Yeah, definitely. At the start of the season, people were saying he's the signing of the season, he's going to be in team of the season, all that kind of stuff. And then, the injury has really knocked stuffing out of him, and he's just not looked anywhere near as good since. Interesting though, I've seen quite a few Leicester fans on social media saying that this is not the first time that Maddison's kind of dropped off towards the end of the season. I don't know how much there is to that. And I do think that it is largely down to the injury. I think
it happened last season, actually, if you look back.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? Strange. But you mentioned Giovanni Lo Celso. Obviously, I've been speaking to Ben, and he's been out there saying that Maddison needs to be dropped and that he thinks Lo Celso is the answer. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but he played, I think, 5 minutes last night and had 3 key passes, which is as many as anyone else on the game. So maybe it is worth a go for Lo Celso, because it's obviously not working for Maddison. Maybe it is best if they try something else for the rest of the season.
Yeah, but one of my favourite things to do, Jonathan, is step into Gareth Southgate's shoes and try and predict what I think the England squad might be in the summer. I spend a lot of time doing things like that in my head.
If you saw me when I picked up a pen there and started scribbling notes, that's what I was writing down, was who I think should be in the attacking midfield line for England.
26. You were writing down a 26-man England squad whilst we were doing the podcast.
I was looking at who's in, because you're presumably you're about to say should Maddison be in it.
Is he at risk? I was going to say. I think he probably is.
I think he shouldn't be any. I think he shouldn't be in it. Yeah.
Well, that probably means with Southgate, he probably will be in it then.
So I think they take 3 centre forwards now. So they take Kane, Tony, and Watkins.
Every other squad he's taken to. Every other squad, even 26 man he's taken to.
But he's had Rashford.
Rashford will be the third. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't have Rashford, so I would have 3.
You've got to put yourself in the mind of the shoes of Southgate, haven't you? And it's a very different place to where I like Southgate, but it's a very different place to where me or you might be if we're putting a squad together. Rashford will go as the third striker / left midfielder, 100%.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. It's not what I'd do, but yeah, you may well be right. But I think in terms of that line of attacking midfielders, it's Saka, Foden, Bellingham, Grealish, Palmer, Gordon, Bowen. For me, will be the 7 if it is 7. I don't see how Maddison gets in ahead of any of them. And then, I guess then the choice becomes: do you take Rashford or Watkins? Well, I definitely take Watkins.
No, I think they both go. I think Watkins and Rashford go.
Oh, you think Tony won't go?
I think Tony won't go. I think out of the players you've just mentioned, I think Bowen potentially doesn't go.
Oh, I think he likes Bowen.
Do you think?
I think Gordon's the one who might miss out of those 7.
Maybe I probably favour Gordon over Bowen in my head. Because you think Foden and Saka are the right hand side options, aren't they? But Foden will probably start on the left, I would think, in the first game. So then if you've got Palmer, he can obviously play right hand side or number 10. I think Grealish 100% goes. Rashford 100% goes. I just think then it's Bellingham.
If you take Gordon,
probably counts as a central midfield player, but will play as a 10, I would think, because we won't.
But if you take
5 central midfielders, including Bellingham.
If you take Gordon, you're massively overloading the left side. Where Bowen gives you a right-sided option as well.
Yeah, Gordon said though in a podcast recently, I play all across the front three. I can play.
Well, I know he does, but he has played on the left more this season. I mean, Bowen can play through the middle as well, can't he? So,
my thinking is that Gordon's younger. Neither of them are realistically going to play a number of minutes. Maddison went to the World Cup and didn't play a second. So you're better off taking a younger player. I feel that's how Southgate will see it. You're better off taking a younger player who's not going to play than someone like Bowen who's 27, 28. And Gordon's got that under-21s tournament experience. I feel like Southgate looks into all this. And I'm just putting myself in the mind of Southgate, Jonathan. There's a figure of him behind me up there. You can see it just looking over me, and it enables me to get into Southgate's mind.
Okay. Can you turn around and ask your statue why you picked Bowen in the last squad and why you brought him on?
Well, he picked Gordon and started Gordon against Brazil as well, didn't he?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
The concern is actually, on that topic, I think that's a valid point, is that Palmer didn't play a second in the last round of international fixtures. So maybe I feel like if he leaves Palmer out of that squad, a bit like if he'd have left Maddison out of that 26-man squad at the World Cup, I think he's going to get pillared.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Pillared?
Pilloried, maybe?
Pilloried, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. Thank you. Maybe. I mean, hopefully we'll do a show around. I would like to do a show around the England squad.
Eric Dyer. That's a big one now. I'd have him in.
I think arguably Southgate will, because I don't think he was in squads leading up to the World Cup, but he's playing for Bayern Munich. He's got tournament experience. I think that we've got centre-back issues in terms of
cover in midfield, conceivably. Happy to play the back three as well as a back four. Yeah, takes penalties.
He could go, couldn't he? He could go. We'll save this for today. I'm trying to get the show over the line with Who Scored. No one listens to me in the WhatsApp group, but I say what I want, and no one listens to me. But yeah, I want to do a show on the England squad. Right, we spent way too long talking about things that aren't in the running order, like we did last week. Let's do the combined 11. I mean, we've got here in the running order. Ange suggested he wanted a team of Romeros. So for a bit of fun, what might that team actually look like? Well, it would just be 11 Romeros. I guess we did see a little hint into what Romero would be like in midfield and what Romero would be like up front last week. No?
Yeah, we had 2 shots last night, I think. I saw someone on X changed his Tottenham Football Manager side to a team of Romeros, and basically just worked out that they came 7th, I think, and had at least 1 red card in every Premier League fixture. Oh, yeah. So, I mean,
there'd be cards.
There would be a lot of cards. I mean, it would probably be quite fun, although just completely impossible. Because
he also might be a bit more, as a goalkeeper, a bit more physical than Vicaria. It feels. Might come and get a corner. Maybe take 1 corner a game at the very least. Come and claim something, which Vicaria can't seem to do at the moment. So Dan, you can't really play this game because you're Who Scored. I'm imagining you've got the combined 11 and the algorithm running around in your head anyway. So I can't really play this game with you. But Jonathan, I can. How many Spurs players are in the Liverpool and Tottenham combined 11?
4.
Oh, he's good. He's good, this guy. Yes, it is 4. Do you know the 4 are?
No.
Am I saying, do you know? Of course he does. You want to have a guess at the 4?
Son?
Correct, up front, yeah. We've mentioned all 3 in this show.
Vicario?
Yep, he's in goal.
Romero?
Yep, he's at centre-back. Not centre-forward.
And then I feel it's got to be a midfielder, just because Liverpool's midfield.
It is a midfielder.
So in and out.
A lovely spread of Spurs, 1 in every line.
So I think it's had quite a good season.
We haven't mentioned these players in the show.
We haven't mentioned So, obviously. I mentioned Basima in my head, but didn't actually say it out loud. Well, he's another player who's declined since the Cup of Nations.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he was very good. He was arguably their most important player before.
Can't be Benton Kerr.
Can't
be Højbjerg.
This is the only other one for Spurs midfielder we've mentioned.
We have mentioned Kerr
fairly recently.
Who it's not Lo Celso. It's who am I missing? Who have I forgotten?
Want me to just tell you?
Yeah, please.
James Maddison.
Oh yeah.
Even though we've just said his form's tailed off, he's still managed by the virtue of his first half of the season exploits. He has still made the first who scored 11. I was waiting for you to be going back even further. Then Darren Anderton, Barnby, and then couldn't get James Maddison. So we've got Vicario in goal,
Dave Mackay, Terry Venables.
Yeah, all them before my time. Struggling for Barnby and Anderson. I've gone back a fair while though, hasn't it? We've got Trent at right back, Romero and Van Dijk's the centre back pairing, Robertson left back. Szoboszlai, McAllister, and Maddison. I still say Szoboszlai's name differently every single week. And then Salah, Son, and Diaz is the front three. Right then, let's do our predictions for this one. I only did my predictions about an hour ago, so I can't remember what it was I predicted for this game. Jonathan?
I've gone 2-1 for Liverpool.
2-1 to Liverpool. Danworth representing George Ellick, the basement boy, who is quickly catching me up, unfortunately.
Well, I've done the exact same as Jonathan. I've gone 2-1 Liverpool.
2-1, safety first. I've gone for 3-1 to Liverpool. So, yeah, could be a differential for me there. They might as well talk about the predictions league. I'm not really that bothered about it. I really was bothered about it up until about April, I think, maybe March, and then I started to just lose interest. It's difficult when you're at the top for the whole season. Concentration, lapses in judgment as well. So it was a bad week for me. 4 points, embarrassing, pitiful. George got 11, which takes him up to 190, and I'm on 212. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Georgie boy could catch me. Unfortunately, Sam and Jonathan got 12 points and are now on 224. It's a long way back from there. I'm going to need some huge predictions. Well,
there's been a 33-point swing since Christmas Day, hasn't there? Which
has there?
Yeah,
that's bad.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of that's Tories and Blackpool South territory. That kind of swing.
I've got no justification for it either. I know you hate me talking about fantasy football, but the same thing has happened with my fantasy football team. I was top first half of the season, and now I've just fell off a cliff. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't concentrate for a whole season.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's quality.
Tortoise in the hair, really, here, isn't it? Really
it's not done yet. But if we have one more good week, and that's it. It's over the line. So hopefully we'll get it done soon, and we can go and have a nice drink and relax last couple of weeks of the season.
And start to look forward to the Euros. Tell you what, though, I'm still in this race. I'd bloody love it if I beat you. I'd love it if I beat you, Jonathan. We've had a lot of things in the press recently, and I've not been happy about it. But I'm still in this race. Don't worry about me. Right, let's talk about. Let's not talk about Crystal Palace, Manchester United. Let's do the rest of our predictions whilst I've got it up on my screen in front of me. Right then, Danworth representing George Ellick. I've heard that you've gone every game to be 12-0, but I don't know whether those rumours are founded or not. What have you gone for Luton against Everton?
Well, I've heard that Dyche is wearing a tracksuit, so I could only go with an Everton 1-0 win.
Oh, well, I've done exactly the same. I've gone for 1-0 to Everton. That might be a good thing to match George's. I don't want to finish bottom, jeez.
Yeah.
Jonathan?
I've gone 1-1.
1-1. Arsenal v Bournemouth, please, Jonathan.
2-0 to Arsenal.
2-0 to Arsenal. I've gone for 4-1 to Arsenal, which probably explains why I am falling away fast in this league. Dan?
I've done 2-0 as well.
2-0. Right, Brentford v Fulham, please, Dan.
1-1.
1-1. I've gone for 2-2. Jonathan?
2-1 to Brentford.
2-1 to Brentford. This is very concerning that I haven't got a single score the same as yours so far. Burnley against Newcastle, please, Jonathan.
1-1.
2-1 to Burnley for me. Dan?
Yeah, same here. 2-1 Burnley.
They need to win Burnley, don't they? They have to win, and they've picked up recently. And Newcastle have been shoddy away from home in recent weeks. Sheffield United with Forest. I've gone for Sheffield United 1, Forest 3. Dan?
I've gone for Sheffield United 1, Forest 2.
Jonathan?
And I've also gone 2-1 to Forest.
Oh dear. Manchester City v Wolves, please, Jonathan.
3-0 to City.
There we go. I've done exactly the same. I've gone for 3-0 as well. Dan?
Yeah, I have too.
It's a clean sweep of 3-0 there. The big one on Sunday, Brighton and Hove Albion against Aston Villa, Dan?
2-0 to Villa.
2-0 to Villa, Jonathan?
2-1 to Villa.
2-1 to Villa as well. Brighton haven't scored for about 3 years. There's no way they don't score against Villa, particularly if Robin Olsen is in goal. Chelsea against West Ham, Dan?
2-2.
2-2. Jonathan?
2-1 to Chelsea.
3-1 to Chelsea here. We've done Liverpool against Tottenham, and of course now we will do Crystal Palace against Manchester United at the end of our run through. But I've spent way too long talking about the first game, so we haven't got loads of time to talk about Crystal Palace versus Manchester United. And you know what? I'm going to make an executive decision. People spend time doing these running orders, and I completely disrespect them. We're not going to talk about Manchester United. We're just going to talk about Crystal Palace. I'm fed up of Manchester United. They're rubbish. Ten Hag's going to go. Let's talk about them.
What is he? I mean,
he's awful. He's deluded.
All the talk this week coming out of the club, so Adam Crafton had a big piece on The Athletic about this, is that they think he's been let down by the execs around and above him, and that they're trying to give him time, which I find bizarre. But
I love Adam Crafton, but I'm not sure I agree with that.
Adam Crafton's very, very well, well connected at United. It surprised me a lot, but that's now what they're saying. The weird thing is, like this time last year, I thought Ten Hag was doing a really good job. He got rid of Ronaldo. He made a difficult decision on De Gea. He got him to third, and I know the criticism was a lot of their wins were by a single goal, and that the underlying numbers weren't great. But I thought, it's at least he sort of got the personality and the drive to get them over the line when they're not playing well. But then this season's been exactly the same. Of their 12 wins in the Premier League this season, is it 12 or is it 16? It's 16 wins, isn't it?
It's a big jump there, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think it's 12 of 16. Hang on, let me just check.
Have you pulled those two numbers from?
They won 16. Yeah. Oh, so 12 of the 16 wins have been by a single goal.
Yeah,
and I think it's 9 of them have come with. They've needed goals after the 76th minute to get the win. So they're not convincing at all.
6 of them have been Scott McTominay.
And Ten Hag, having been this sort of very blunt, clear-eyed voice of truth last season, just talking nonsense this season. It's just bizarre. You sort of see the pressure of United that he's just gone completely. And I don't know if you can ever regain your credibility after that.
No, I think we're one of the most entertaining teams in the league.
Well, that is true, but like that,
not for good reasons.
That shouldn't be. You shouldn't be trying to be entertaining in that way. The job of managers to win games, not to entertain.
So we have 20 plus shots against us every week. We are one of the most entertaining teams in the league. Can't say stuff like that, Dan.
No, it's ridiculous, isn't it? And I guess for us three, it has been very entertaining to watch. But if you're a United fan hearing that, you're not going to be too happy because it's been painful. I mean, they do have the FA Cup final coming up. I know that's not going to change how it's looked at, whether it's been a success for United or not.
I mean, they're not going to win it. They're just not going to win it.
It'll be entertaining, won't it?
They will not win that trophy.
Yeah, I can't see it either.
No chance.
I can't see it either.
God, I hope this doesn't get clipped up and used against me.
It would be totally unexpected and very weird if they won it. But every game they've played in the cup this season has been unexpected and totally weird. They've chucked away a 2-0 lead against Newport, a 3-0 lead against Coventry, and gone through those games. They got played off the park by Liverpool, ended up playing Bruno Fernandes at centre back, and somehow won that game 4-3 with 10 men. None of this makes any sense. So. I mean, he's Ten Hag, the great entertainer, is single-handedly restoring the magic of the cup. He's out there on stage with his top hat, pulling out the biggest rabbits you've ever seen.
I've got visions of Eric Ten Hag singing the Greatest Showman. Someone cleverer than me needs to make that. So that should probably be our thumbnail for this podcast. Anyway, Jonathan's got 20 points deducted from the prediction league because he's talked about Manchester United, and we said we weren't going to. So unfortunately, Jonathan, that was one of the stories of the season. He's got 20 point deduction from the predictions league, which is really unfortunate because he was having a wonderful season. Well,
my fans will turn up with coloured cards, and it'll just make us all the more determined. It's going to galvanise us for the run-in.
You probably still beat me at the moment. Some of my predictions, even if you did get 20 points taken off you. Let's talk about Crystal Palace then, Dan. Let's talk about Jean-Philippe Mateta. I've always thought he's a good player. I don't know if it's just because even when people have said he's rubbish, he's still always scored against my team. But under Glasner, I'm thinking about Krispy Kreme donuts. And under Glasner, he's been brilliant. Playing around Olise and Eze as well must be a joy because they're fantastic footballers. But things have changed under Glasner, haven't they? I actually think just by the way he's come in and improved them straight away. A touch of when Unai Emery came in at Villa, I would say.
Yeah, well, he's done great since he came in. I think there's only 5 teams in the league that have won more points than Palace since he took over, which just goes to show like how good a job he's done, and like that's showing so much from Mateta. Like he's banging form at the moment. And I think like I tried to have a think about what's changed for him, and I think he's just playing as a centre forward. Right, he's getting less involvement in the build-up play, and is just sticking in the chances when he gets them. And as you mentioned, with Olise and Eza, like they're abundant, and that's why he's scoring so much more. And yeah, I've really enjoyed watching Palace since Glasner came in, and I think on the script later that we're talking about Olise and Eza even more. As a Reading fan, I'm Olise's biggest fan. So yeah, I think they're great to watch at the moment. And yeah, all credit to Glasner.
I don't like doing this, Jonathan. I think we may have even done this a few weeks ago. I don't know whether you were on or not, but where would Eza and Olise go? If they were to leave, what's their level? Because I think they're both sensational players, and I hope they don't go to Chelsea or Manchester United. Because
I think City are in for Eza. I think that's a pretty strong rumour for the summer. Yeah, I haven't heard anything about Olise, but yes, City for Eza I think is sort of. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's definitely being talked about in agent circles.
If you were operating in these agent circles, can you maybe just chuck Villa's name in there for me? Just so we can get that going. I'd love him.
I merely hear the crumbs of rumours from the agent's table. And Olise, I mean, I guess he hasn't quite had the experience of Eza, but I think he's another enormously talented player. I think the other thing that Glasner's changed, and I was very fortunate. I saw Glasner's first 2 games. I was at just by chance. They beat Burnley 3-0 in his first game, which was a bit of a weird game. That they were totally on top. Burnley got a man sent off in a very Burnley way, passing out from back, losing it, and panicking. And then it took us ages to score, and you sort of thought, "Oh, it hasn't really changed that much." But actually, you know, it was one of those games where they were simultaneously totally on top, and yet looked like they might not win it. They then were at Spurs, where I thought they played really intelligently, took the lead, and let in 3 goals in the last quarter of an hour. And that was a good example of a manager actually admitting there's a problem and saying he's looking at it, because at that point, Palace were conceding hundreds of goals in the last 15 minutes of games. And he was asked about that. And he was like, yeah, of course we know it's a problem. I've looked at the stats, and it may be I can't really work on it till the summer if it's a fitness issue, but we're definitely aware of it. And we're
the opposite of Postecoglou, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Don't really care about conceding goals late in games, mate. That's not what it's about.
Do you think I care about that, mate?
So I think he's a really impressive bloke. I think I saw quite a bit of his Eintracht Frankfurt side in that Europa League run as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's I think he's a very good appointment for Palace. I fully expect them to be. I mean, the problem is Palace are stuck in that mezzanine just below mid-table, and it takes something quite major for them to get into the top half. But I don't think relegation is going to be at all a threat next season. I think they'll be comfortable mid-table, and I think it's not impossible they could challenge for Europe even next season.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they lose Eza and Olise, or even one of them, that becomes a lot harder because they are so good. But
are they losing Dougie Freedman as well? Or have I imagined that? Am I doing that thing where I get stuck in my football manager world again? I know he's linked with Manchester United, but obviously he's picked up those players, hasn't he? And Wharton and Munoz who've been really, really good since.
Been excellent. Wharton especially, I think. Yeah, he's really stood. Could have been sent off against Burnley, actually. Having said that, but apart from that, I think he's been exceptional. And Munoz as well has given him a bit more drive from left back, and I think that the sort of the controlled nature of the Glasner press, I think, has been the really impressive thing. It's not manic all out pressing, but when they do press, they really press, and it's a different way of playing to Hodgson. And Glasner, I think, has been very careful not to be critical of Hodgson, to say it's a different way of doing things, and I think that's right. But he does seem to have injected them with new energy and new life.
Actually, Munoz is Palace's 3rd top performer across the entirety of the season. Olise and Eze are unsurprisingly top. Unfortunately, they haven't been on the pitch together very much, and Olise not really spent much time on the pitch at all, actually, this season. But Munoz is third with 7.02, and we know that WhoScored defenders to get high ratings, it seems tougher than attacking players. So well done to him for making Crystal Palace's top three. Let's have a little bit of Manchester United shots against bingo then for this one. Dan, I'll let you go first. First time playing Manchester United shots against bingo. Looking forward to it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to it. I'm going for 21.
21. The problem is with this game is that we do it, and then I don't know what anyone said for next week. We don't ever talk about it again. We just do it for a bit of fun. I'll probably remember my own number and see if that's the shots against, and then just take the credit the next week if that happens. Jonathan?
19. I think they might tighten up slightly this week.
No, I've got big numbers in my head here. 27.
Ooh, yeah, that is big.
Honestly, I can just see Mateta just completely bullying the Manchester United back line. Okay, is Casemiro still going to be playing centre half, or is someone back? Because I just think that's got disaster written all over it against Palace. I can see Palace. Yeah. I mean, I actually want to change my prediction. I bottled what I was going to do. I actually want to change my prediction. What have you two gone for? I'll come to you first, Dan.
I've gone for 2-1 to Palace.
That's what I did in that change, and I've submitted it, so I can't do anything about it now. For 2-2, but I think Palace will win. Jonathan?
I've got 1-1.
1-1. Okay, that's something then at least. Well, unless it is 1-1 and you get 3 points. But yeah, all right, cool. That does us then for this week's edition of the Edge of the Box podcast, WhoScored.com, in association with UltimateFan. And yes, I did still have to glance over even then. Hopefully everyone has enjoyed the show. If you are enjoying it, wherever you are taking in the podcast, then please, if you could do all the things that help us, like liking, subscribing, what else can you do? You can comment as well. You can leave reviews if you're listening via podcast, Spotify. I think you can give stars as well. So you do, if you're enjoying it, go and do all those things. Give the video a like as well. We get the views, the view number, and then the likes is never anywhere near the views. So yeah, I think if you're watching it and you're enjoying it, the video a cheeky little like as well, if you can. We'll be back next week to preview the Premier League action as we always do, and discuss the predictions league, Manchester United shots against bingo, all these fun things that are incorporated into the podcast. And I'll probably just not follow the running order again like I have done for the last couple of weeks as well. Enjoy all the football at the weekend, and as ever, tell all your friends and family about the podcast, and let's throw in a stay safe as well, because I haven't done that for a while.